The world is filled with those who seek to bend you to their will, to manipulate your desires, your fears, your very thoughts. But what if I told you there is a way to render their schemes useless, to move freely while they remain blind? Today, you will learn the silent art that strips them of their power over you. Observe closely. Men and women are driven by ambition, envy, and the subtle urge to dominate. They will test your boundaries, probe your weaknesses, and whisper illusions of loyalty or friendship. Yet the wise understand, power is a mirror, reflecting only what you allow. In this video, we descend into the cold shadows of human nature, revealing the hidden mechanics of control and the method by which you may become untouchable. Prepare your mind, for the truths I will unfold are uncomfortable, precise, and profoundly liberating. You must understand this silence is not emptiness. It is a weapon, a carefully measured pause, a subtle withdrawal, a refusal to supply the fuel others crave. These are the instruments of power. Ask yourself, how often have you spoken too soon, revealed too much, and watched as others exploited your words against you? History is littered with those who underestimated the potency of quiet observation. Consider the courts of Renaissance princes. Courtiers spoke endlessly, each word a dagger disguised as loyalty. Yet the shrewdest rulers listened. They allowed the chatter, the gossip, the insistent whispers to flow around them, never touching the core of their intent. In silence, they collected information. In silence, they measured ambitions. In silence, they moved with precision while the rest stumbled, blinded by their own tongues. You see, silence does not merely conceal knowledge. It creates it. Every word you withhold forces others to speculate. They chase shadows. They construct illusions. And in that construction, they expose their desires, their weaknesses, their fears. When you resist the urge to respond immediately, you force the manipulator into a trap of their own making. Do you feel the subtle power in that? To guide without speaking, to influence without effort, to command attention merely by absence. Psychologically, humans are not rational actors. They are seekers of patterns, hunters of meaning. When deprived of information, they invent it. The more they speak, the more they reveal their strategies, their vulnerabilities, their dependence on your reactions. Consider the office politics around you. How often have you observed colleagues eager to outmaneuver each other, revealing everything about themselves in their rush to dominate? One silent nod, one carefully timed pause, and their entire scheme collapses under its own weight. Even in personal relationships, this principle thrives. Think of the partner who demands constant explanations, the friend who seeks to manipulate your guilt, or the competitor who pries for weaknesses. Silence, strategically deployed, is not mere avoidance. It is mastery. It communicates control without confrontation, strength without aggression. It leaves others exposed, while you remain an enigma, untouchable and calculating. History offers us stark illustrations. Recall Caesar's subtle use of restraint in his dealings with Brutus. Caesar often listened more than he spoke, allowed Brutus and others to reveal themselves, and yet his own intentions remained inscrutable until the decisive moment. Or examine Elizabeth I, whose court thrived on rumor and intrigue, yet she revealed almost nothing, compelling those around her to act under her invisible guidance. In every case, silence was their shield, their sword, their instrument of influence. But let us not be naive. Silence alone is not power. It is the soil in which power grows. It must be coupled with observation, with an understanding of human nature, and with precise timing. Speak too soon and you relinquish control. Speak too late and the opportunity may vanish. Speak without intention, and your words are mere noise. Yet when deployed with discipline, each pause becomes a calculated move on a board only you fully comprehend. Now, examine your own life. When someone presses you for answers, do you react immediately, flustered by their insistence, or do you allow a moment, just a beat longer than expected, to make them reveal themselves? Observe the hesitation in their eyes, the anxiety in their voice, the shift in posture. Every human betrays themselves under pressure, and silence is the instrument that applies it. You might think this is a passive strategy, a timid retreat. It is nothing of the sort. It is the deliberate harnessing of psychological reality. Humans fear what they do not control. By withholding, by listening, by observing, you invert the hierarchy. You are no longer the one chasing approval, validation, or victory. They are chasing you, attempting to map your mind, and all the while you remain concealed, calm, and calculating. Remember this: words once spoken cannot be unspoken, yet silence can be as sharp as the keenest blade. Each carefully chosen pause, each refusal to respond, is a mark of sovereignty over your own mind and over the minds of those who would manipulate you. It is the quiet stage on which power performs, unseen yet undeniable. And now, having grasped the subtle potency of silence, you must ask yourself if one pause can expose weakness and command attention. What might you achieve by mastering the entire spectrum of human manipulation through strategic restraint? The next principle reveals the methods of invisible influence, the silent currents that move men and women without their awareness. What you learn there may make even the boldest attempts to control you utterly futile. Power rarely announces itself. It moves quietly, like a shadow crossing a courtyard, unnoticed until it has already shifted the course of events. You may believe influence comes only from bold declarations, from visible gestures, from the imposing weight of authority, but that is the error of the naive. True control is subtle, invisible, and often unrecognized until it is too late. Ask yourself, how often have you realized only after the fact that someone had guided your decisions, nudged your desires, or shaped your fears without your awareness? Consider the art of persuasion in the courts of history. Cardinal Richelieu, for example, did not dominate through force alone. He dominated through networks, rumors, and carefully orchestrated appearances. He planted suggestions in the minds of those who thought they were making their own choices. He understood that the mind craves autonomy, yet can be steered when the illusion of freedom is maintained. Have you ever noticed how a carefully framed question can make a person reveal more than they intended? Or how a fleeting compliment can guide a decision they thought was entirely theirs? This is unseen influence at work. Psychologically, humans are driven by narrative. We construct our lives around stories we believe are ours, yet so many of these narratives are seeded by others. The subtle nod, the casually mentioned idea, the strategically placed observation, all act like invisible levers. You may laugh, thinking, "I am too clever to be manipulated." But every mind carries its own blind spots. Every desire, every ambition, every fear can be coaxed if one knows where to press. Influence is the silent art of knowing exactly where those blind spots lie and applying pressure without detection. Think of the merchants of Florence who controlled the flow of commerce not by open decree, but by the invisible shaping of expectations. Contracts were worded with precision to suggest cooperation while masking the true advantage of the manipulator. Deals appeared mutual, yet the hidden hand guided outcomes toward profit and power. And the same principle applies to modern life. A word whispered at the right moment, a pattern subtly established over time, can bend people toward your intent without their awareness. You must understand, influence does not require domination. It requires patience and observation. It requires placing yourself at the intersection of others' desires and fears. Consider how the cunning courtier does not confront rivals openly but shifts alliances, plants doubt, and lets ambition itself do the work. Each person acts under the belief that their choices are self-directed, yet they are following a path you have illuminated. Can you see how much more dangerous this is than open conflict? Open aggression triggers resistance. Invisible guidance bypasses it entirely. Even in personal relationships, this principle is vital. A leader, a parent, a partner, or a friend can subtly shape behavior not by command but by suggestion. Praise a minor virtue to encourage repeated action. Show fleeting disappointment to redirect attention. Create an environment where the choices you desire appear to be theirs. It is not trickery, it is strategy. And strategy is the currency of survival in a world governed by ambition, envy, and hidden agendas. History teaches us another lesson. The most powerful often remain unnoticed. Alexander the Great's generals, for instance, were moved by both fear and admiration, yet much of his power lay in the unseen. The calculated reputation, the whispered promises, the rumors spread deliberately to unsettle enemies. Influence is magnified when it is concealed. When your hand is visible, it is opposed. When it is invisible, it guides. Ask yourself, how often could you accomplish more by shaping events silently than by confronting them head-on? The modern world is no different. Think of boardrooms, political arenas, social circles. Who is truly in control? The one who shouts, or the one whose subtle patterns shape decisions long before they are noticed? Influence is not loud. It does not demand attention. It thrives in the shadows, where perception can be guided without awareness. Now, look at your own life. Consider the subtle nudges, the suggestions, the offhand remarks that have shaped your behavior. How often have you been guided by invisible hands? What if you could turn this principle on those who would control you, shaping outcomes without their awareness, bending desires and expectations while remaining untouchable? Mastering unseen influence is not merely advantageous. It is essential. It allows you to operate above the fray, guiding events as an architect of reality rather than a player at the mercy of others' schemes. And yet, understanding the invisible hand is only the beginning. The next lesson reveals the core mechanism that renders those who seek to control you utterly powerless: the detachment from desire, the ultimate safeguard of sovereignty over mind and action. Desire is a chain. Every want, every craving, every fleeting longing ties you to the expectations of others. Ask yourself, who controls a man consumed by longing? The answer is simple: those who recognize his attachments. In the eyes of manipulators, your desires are weaknesses waiting to be exploited. Every ambition can be twisted, every hope can be weaponized, and every attachment becomes a lever they may pull. To be untouchable, one must first sever these chains. Not through denial, but through calculated detachment. Consider Marcus Aurelius, whose Stoic philosophy was not mere introspection, but a strategy of power. By mastering his desires, he ruled an empire with the calm of a river, unshaken by flattery, envy, or fear. Those who sought to manipulate him, senators, generals, and rivals alike, found their schemes faltering. His detachment was invisible armor. They could not tempt him, nor provoke him, nor bend him to their will. How often do you allow the lure of desire to dictate your decisions, leaving yourself vulnerable to invisible hands? Psychologically, attachment creates predictability. When a person desires wealth, approval, or affection, they reveal patterns. They act in ways that betray their intentions. They can be influenced, trapped, and controlled. But a mind unbound by desire becomes unpredictable, untraceable, and dangerous. Do you see the logic? To detach is not to live without ambition. It is to control ambition, to channel it on your own terms, where no one else may interfere. History provides stark examples. Consider the legendary strategist Zhuge Liang of ancient China. His detachment from personal gain allowed him to act with clarity and foresight. While others pursued glory, he remained focused on outcomes, guiding armies and shaping alliances with a mind unconcerned by praise or envy. Those who sought to manipulate him found nothing to grasp. He was fluid, untethered, and untouchable. Even in personal dynamics, detachment is power. Picture a courtier in a royal court, faced with bribery, flattery, or threats. The courtiers who were controlled by desire fell into traps, exposed themselves, and became pawns. The one who cultivated detachment moved silently, observed, and influenced without revealing a single vulnerability. Detachment turns your mind into a fortress. No one may enter because the gate they expected, your cravings, is empty. We live in a world obsessed with attachment. Approval, validation, recognition. These are the chains that bind the Na'vi. Observe those around you. Who acts out of hope for praise? Who crumbles under the weight of ambition? And now, ask yourself, how would their influence over you dissolve if you no longer sought their approval? If you no longer needed their validation? If you no longer feared their judgment? The answer is simple: they would have nothing. They would grasp at shadows. They would chase illusions. You would remain sovereign. But detachment is not a void. It is a controlled instrument. It allows you to act freely, to choose strategically, to engage in human games with clarity rather than impulse. Napoleon understood this. His relentless drive was not guided by whim or desire for comfort. It was shaped by precise ambition, yet he remained detached from distractions that might have weakened his control. Detachment allowed him to wield influence, to command loyalty, and to shape outcomes on his own terms. Even in relationships, detachment preserves power. When you act without neediness, without expectation, you create space in which others reveal themselves. They attempt to manipulate, to provoke, to bind you. But you remain untouchable. Observe closely. The less you depend, the more control you hold. Desire is the leash others hope to slip around your neck. Detachment is the blade that severs it. And yet, this principle is rarely understood. Men and women cling to possessions, titles, affections, and accolades as if they were lifelines. They do not see that attachment is precisely what makes them vulnerable. Detachment does not mean abandoning life's ambitions. It means mastering them, channeling them in ways that protect your autonomy and render attempts to control you impotent. So, reflect. If desire is the chain, detachment is the key. And once you hold this key, you gain more than freedom. You gain the clarity to see the invisible threads of influence, the subtle manipulations, the patterns others cannot perceive. But detachment alone is not enough. It must be paired with understanding the machinery of manipulation itself. And that is the next lesson: predicting manipulators before they even move, reading intentions before they are concealed, and turning their schemes into instruments of your own strategy. The first step in evading control is knowing your enemy before they strike. Predicting manipulators is not guessing. It is observation, analysis, and understanding human nature at its rawest. Ask yourself, how often have you been blindsided by someone you trusted? How many schemes, subtle or overt, have shaped your decisions without your awareness? Predicting their moves transforms chaos into opportunity. It turns the hunted into the hunter. Observe the patterns. Humans are creatures of habit, even when they plot in secrecy. Every manipulator leaves traces, subtle cues in posture, tone, and timing. The ambitious colleague who constantly tests boundaries. The partner who pressures for compliance. The friend who provokes jealousy. These are all predictable behaviors. They act out of desire, fear, or ambition, and these drives are rarely hidden as well as they believe. If you study them carefully, you can anticipate their moves, counter their strategies, and use their predictability against them. History offers stark lessons. Consider the intricate court of Louis XIV. The Sun King understood that those who sought his favor would always reveal their intentions through subtle behaviors: a glance too long, a bow too deep, a whisper too eager. Courtiers thought themselves invisible, their schemes hidden. Yet the king's keen observation allowed him to foresee alliances and betrayals before they crystallized. Predicting manipulators is not about paranoia, it is about clarity. Can you see how much power lies in simply knowing what others are likely to do before they act? Psychologically, manipulators rely on a predictable set of tactics. They pressure, they appeal to emotion, they create dependency, and they exploit attachment. But if you understand these levers, you see the path of their influence as clearly as a riverbed is traced by the flow of water. When you recognize the signs, you are no longer reactive. You are proactive. You set the terms of engagement. They move, but you have already anticipated, countered, and shaped the outcome. Take the example of Frederick the Great. His generals and ministers often attempted to manipulate him through flattery or subtle coercion. Yet Frederick, detached from personal desire and deeply observant of human patterns, could predict their actions. He understood not only their words but their motives. He anticipated betrayals, calculated loyalties, and exploited ambitions, all before they fully manifested. By reading intentions before they were hidden, he converted potential threats into instruments of his strategy. Even in modern life, manipulators act according to familiar scripts. The coworker angling for your promotion The social acquaintance attempting to control your reputation, the political actor shaping narratives for their gain. They all follow recognizable rhythms. Look for repetition, hesitation, over-eagerness, or calculated omissions. Each is a window into their strategy. And when you predict their behavior, you no longer walk blind, you move with purpose, untouchable and always one step ahead. But prediction is more than observation. It is understanding the mechanics of human desire and fear. Every manipulator exploits what you crave or what you dread. Do you crave approval and they offer it like bait? Do you fear rejection and they subtly threaten it? Predicting manipulation requires tracing the invisible threads between your vulnerabilities and their ambitions. Once you see these connections, you can neutralize them. You can act freely, choosing your path while they flail in the illusion that they are guiding you. Consider this: the most dangerous manipulators are not the overtly aggressive, but the subtle, the patient, the persistent. They rely on stealth, repetition, and the gradual erosion of your autonomy. And yet, even the most sophisticated cannot hide their patterns from a mind that observes, reflects, and anticipates. By studying behavior history and human psychology, you gain an advantage that is both invisible and absolute. You become the strategist in a world of unwitting pawns. Now, reflect on your life. How many attempts to control you could have been predicted if you had only observed closely? How many manipulations went unnoticed because the signals were subtle yet present? Prediction is not theory, it is preparation. It is the difference between being guided and being untouchable. And yet, predicting manipulators is only one stage of mastery. To be truly untouchable, you must combine foresight with invisibility. Anticipate their moves, but then vanish from their radar entirely. That is the next lesson: the power of invisibility. When you disappear from their awareness, their schemes collapse, their influence dissolves, and you operate in freedom they cannot comprehend. Invisibility is the ultimate form of power. It is the silence after which moves are made, the shadow from which influence flows, the absence that compels others to act blindly. Ask yourself, how many times have you felt the weight of someone's control without seeing the hand that applied it? What if you could reverse the equation? Be present yet unseen, acting while others chase illusions. This is the mastery of invisibility. History offers vivid lessons. Consider the Venetian spies of the Renaissance. Merchants and diplomats navigated treacherous waters of intrigue, war, and shifting alliances. Those who were most effective were not those who flaunted authority, but those who vanished from perception, gathering intelligence silently, weaving influence without exposure. Their power lay not in presence, but in absence, the subtle manipulation that left their enemies bewildered, unsure, powerless. Can you imagine how much control is gained when your adversary cannot even locate the source of influence? Psychologically, invisibility exploits the mind's dependence on perception. Humans act on what they observe, and when the observer is removed, actions become erratic, desperate, and revealing. The manipulator, accustomed to seeing reactions, suddenly finds the target unreachable. The more silent, absent, and unobtrusive you are, the more others fill the void with assumptions, errors, and unintended confessions. You shape outcomes without confrontation, command attention without effort, and move with freedom while they stumble. Even the greatest rulers understood this principle. Alexander the Great, in his campaigns, often left forces unseen, moving reserves in secrecy. His enemies, unaware of his true position or intent, made critical errors. They overextended, miscalculated, and revealed vulnerabilities, while he remained untouchable. The power of invisibility lies not in hiding entirely, but in controlling visibility, appearing when advantageous, disappearing when necessary. Presence is a tool, absence is strategy. In personal and professional life, the same truth applies. Consider the ambitious colleague who constantly seeks to assert control. If you respond to every provocation, you are engaged in their game. If you reveal every thought or emotion, you provide ammunition. But when you withdraw strategically, observe silently, and allow them to act in ignorance, you become the architect of outcomes. Their energy is wasted, their influence dissolves, your autonomy remains intact. Invisibility is not weakness, it is foresight manifested. History and psychology converge in subtle yet profound ways. The shrewd courtier, the quiet strategist, the untouchable leader. They understand that humans are guided by the illusion of control. When that illusion is removed, the mind flounders. The fewer traces you leave, the less predictable you are, the harder it becomes for others to manipulate you. Have you noticed how absence magnifies presence? By vanishing at the right moments, you amplify your significance, inspire speculation, and control perception without force. Consider modern parallels: corporate environments, political arenas, social networks. Those who dominate are often the ones least conspicuous, quietly shaping events, influencing decisions, and orchestrating outcomes while others compete for attention. Visibility invites attack. Invisibility grants freedom. Those who cannot see you cannot constrain you. Every interaction, every observation, every expectation is now under your control. Not because you dominate openly, but because you exist outside the field they perceive. Yet invisibility is not merely passive retreat. It is active strategy. It requires understanding which battles to engage, which desires to conceal, and which patterns to disrupt. Napoleon, in his campaigns, often operated invisibly. The enemy focused on what they could see, while he maneuvered unseen, striking where and when they least expected. The invisible actor is not absent from life. They are present in effect, omnipotent in consequence, yet imperceptible in motion. Now reflect how much of your own life is controlled by the gaze of others, by the subtle attempts of those who seek to bend you to their will. Imagine stepping out of that gaze, moving unseen, yet shaping the outcomes around you. Imagine the freedom to act without fear, the clarity to influence without confrontation, the power to command while remaining invisible. That is sovereignty. That is untouchability. And yet, invisibility is only one component of mastery. To render control completely futile, you must combine it with foresight, detachment, and the strategic restraint of speech and action. When these principles converge, you move beyond mere self-protection. You become an enigma, a force unseen yet unavoidable, operating in a world where attempts to control you collapse before they begin. Control is rarely loud. It is silent, invisible, unseen. Those who seek to dominate you prey on desire, reaction, and attachment. But mastery lies in knowing the rules they do not. Silence, observation, detachment, prediction, invisibility. These are your weapons. Ask yourself who truly holds power, the one who shouts commands, or the one who moves unseen while others chase illusions. Who is free, the one who reacts or the one who anticipates? Every word you withhold, every step you anticipate, every desire you master strips them of leverage. You become untouchable. You become sovereign over your mind, your choices, and the currents of influence that flow around you. Now the question remains, will you act or remain prey to subtle hands shaping your world? Comment below your observations. Share the ways you have faced manipulation and how you overcame it. Subscribe if you dare to uncover more strategies that reveal human nature in its rawest, most strategic form. Share this lesson with those who think they control the game. Let them see and learn too late.